Hi, friends. My name is Kate Hanch. My pronouns are she and her, and I am blessed to serve as an associate pastor here at First St. Charles. And today we are bringing back the Reverend Diane Minky Pence. Um, just as a reminder, she is a licensed professional counselor in Missouri. She's also an ordained deacon in the United Methodist Church, as well as an endorsed pastoral counselor by the United Methodist Endorsing Agency. And before retiring, she served and was appointed in a private practice, therapy practice in St. Charles. Also, before retiring, she served part-time as an associate pastor at our church. And today we are talking about mental health on this first week of October, which is Mental Health Awareness Week. So I am so grateful for Pastor Diane for returning with us. So thank you.
Thanks for asking me.
Thank you. And so we are continuing our conversation around mental health. And I was wondering, what are some common symptoms of mental health concerns or mental illness?
Well, there are so many because there are so many mental health concerns. But let's talk about some common ones. Let's talk about things that are very common amongst our population. And I think it's really important that we be aware of these because they can help us when we recognize them in ourselves. They can help us to begin our healing faster. But before I list these symptoms, I'd like you to think about this. When I go through this list of symptoms, which I'll probably read so that I don't leave any out, but when I go through that list of symptoms, let's think about when and if we've experienced some of those, especially in this time of COVID, with the upcoming election, with wildfires, with all the things that are going on in our world. Let's think about which ones of these we might have experienced ourselves at different times, because we do experience some of these at different times in our lives. So if we do experience them because of what's going on in our environment, it is because it's situational. Doesn't mean we have a mental health disorder or a mental health concern. It is situational as long as it doesn't get, as we talked about last week, to a level where it impacts our functioning in a severe way. So here's a list of concerns. And let's start with one that's really common, feeling very sad or withdrawn. Sometimes we feel sad, sometimes we just withdraw, sometimes we don't have any feelings at all. That's a common symptom of mental health concerns. Another is sudden or overwhelming fear that comes out of nowhere or seems to come out of nowhere. It could include a racing heart, difficulty breathing, an inability to think clearly. It's more of an anxiety kind of feeling. And that also is common. We should have anxiety at different times, for reasons to have anxiety at different times. Changes in mood, behavior, or personality. If we're normally a laid-back person and we become very focused and intent and are very concerned that we get everything done rather than being laid back, that's a change in our behavior. Significant changes in sleeping habits, appetite, and enjoyable activities. This actually is one of the first symptoms that appears oftentimes with mental health concerns. Our sleep is affected, our appetite is affected, and even just not wanting to do anything that we normally like to do. It's one of the first questions I ask in the therapy room of people if they have any changes in those. Another is increased difficulty in concentrating. Our thinking changes, and so our ability to focus or concentrate can change. And the last kind of common one that I would mention is worry or fear that is intense or out of proportion with the situation and keeps us from doing our normal everyday activities. If we're constantly in fear, constantly worrying about things, that is probably a sign that something's going on mentally with us. Now, I ask you to think about those for yourself. I don't know about you, but I've experienced quite a few of those in these last 6 months of COVID-19. And actually, I experience them periodically because of the things that are going on in the world. The trick is with mental health, it's not a trick, but the concern is with mental health that if they persist, if they get worse, we need to make sure we address them. Before they get worse, before they last a long time, it's also important that we address them. But when they get worse, it's harder to come back from those.
That is so helpful. And I imagine a lot of our folks have experienced or are experiencing a wide range of those symptoms right now. If I feel like I have a mental health concern or a mental illness, how do I ask for help?
Pastor Kate, I am so glad you asked that question, because sometimes asking for help is the thing that holds people back from getting help. And I think that's a very important one. So if we're experiencing a mental health concern, it's really helpful to reach out first to someone that we trust or feel very comfortable with. It might be a friend, it might be a family member, it might be a pastor, it might be a spouse, someone that we know we can say, hey, I'm having some trouble and I kind of need some help to move forward, to figure out what my next steps are, to maybe even go for help to a therapist or a group or something like that. The second thing I would say is don't put it off. We tend to say, well, I'll see if I get better. And then when we get a little worse, we think, well, I can handle this. I'll see if, I'll make sure it doesn't get worse. And pretty soon we've forgotten where we were and where we started, and we're not where we want to be. So don't put it off. Address it as soon as you notice it. In fact, I said earlier, I think sometimes it's better to address things before they get to a level that they're impacting our functioning than it is to wait until they get there. If we don't, during COVID, begin to address some of these feelings, they could become severe or serious for us. So address it quickly and don't put it off. You're worth it. We're worth it. God made us as individuals who deserve to take care of ourselves. The third is don't worry about bothering other people or whether they have too much going on in their own life. This I hear all the time from people. I can't talk to that friend because they've got their own things going on. They have things that are bothering them. Well, the truth of the matter is we're called to care for one another. And if someone does really have something that they cannot help us because they've got their own mental health concerns or a crisis going on in their life, they will surely let us know. And that's okay, because not everybody can be everything to everyone at this, all the time. But don't let that stop you, because sometimes helping someone else can be a healing thing in itself. And the last one I wanted to mention is, if you decide to go to therapy and it feels scary to walk in the therapy door or to even call to talk to a therapist, don't hesitate to ask someone to help you make that first appointment, to go with you to that first appointment, to process that appointment with you afterwards, because that community can help us to really, like we take someone to a doctor, going to a therapist, it can help us to manage that as well. And it can just give us a sense of peace as we walk in the door that first time.
Wow, those are so helpful. And not only are we thinking about ourselves, but we are thinking about our loved ones in this season. If somebody I love, if I sense they may have a mental health concern or mental illness, what can I do and how do I support them?
Another great question, and really important to a therapist, because one of the things that we find is most helpful to people who are going through mental health concerns is that they have some persons who are supporting them. They need to build a support network around them. So that's an amazing question. And we're called to care for one another anyway, so that makes all the difference. So the first one is to be patient. Mental health healing takes time. We think if this is where we are in our situation and this is where we want to go to heal, we think that we're going to move this way and just move right on up the path toward healing. The truth of the matter is we start here and we go all over the place to move up to where we're going. And so it takes time. It's not a smooth transition to healing. Sometimes it is, especially if we catch things earlier, but for the most part, it takes some work and it takes some time. So being patient is important. Ask the person how they're doing regularly and offer support. My favorite way to do this is to use a John Wesley question. How is it with your soul? It covers a multitude of things going on in our lives, and it is such an important question with mental health. So it's my favorite way to ask. It's important not to worry about saying just the right thing, and we do worry about this with people with mental health concerns. It's not about saying the right thing. They'll let you know. If you say, are you frustrated? They'll say, no, I'm angry. They'll let you know that. Just listen for understanding. Listen to try to understand where they're coming from. Most persons with mental health concerns really just want to be understood and have somebody that they know cares and understands where they're coming from and is there to support them. Also encourage them with simple positive statements. A lot of times, when we have mental health concerns, there's a lot of negativity going on in our head, a lot of negative thoughts about ourselves, about the world, about things going on. And when we hear positive things, it kind of balances that out for us and takes us out of that negative kind of thinking. So saying something like, I just love the way you are with your granddaughter, or boy, this was a good day that we had together, or um, gosh, I appreciate it when you call me and it just makes my day. Anything just simple to change that negative thinking pattern that they may have going on in their mind is helpful. Also, one of the first things to go when we have mental health concerns is fun. So invite them to do something enjoyable and engaging. Go for a walk, go have an ice cream cone, sit and chat about something, watch a funny movie, do something enjoyable together. A lot of times it's hard for a person with a mental health concern to do that for themselves. So encourage them to do that with you. And lastly, and probably the overall one, is never give up. Never give up on the person. God doesn't give up on us. So don't give up on the person that you love and care about.
That is, again, you are offering such wisdom that is so desperately needed in this season, Pastor Diane. So thank you for offering your wisdom. I'm sure a lot of us will take it to heart. That said, I would like to close in a prayer, and this week it's from the Catholic Mental Health Association of the United States. So let us pray. Loving God, you are always near to us, especially when we are weak, suffering, and vulnerable. Reach out to those who experience mental health concerns. Lift their burdens, calm their anxiety, and quiet their fears. Surround them with your healing presence that they may know they are not alone. Amen. Well, thank you, Pastor Diane, and grace and peace, friends.